Welcome to this segment of my channel on the map of reality, part 2. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about how to navigate through reality, self-development, dating, and how to reduce suffering in life. Subscribe to my channel for that sort of content. Let's dive into it. So, the map of reality is a subsegment of my channel where I discuss the nature of reality and how as a human you can navigate through it effectively. Okay, so today's subsegment video is about iterating one's map, which is very important, and here's why. So life is infinitely complex, and as a limited human being with limited cognitive capacities, you need to make simplifications in order to navigate it without your brain going into complete overdrive, being completely stressed out all the time because of the high number of variables that would have needed to be processed in order to interpret the world how it really is. Because it is infinitely complex, there are an infinite number of variables, and that's just not capable to process for a limited human being. And the benefit of these simplifications, which I will call the map of reality, your map of reality, because they're your simplifications, the benefit is that you're able to exist in a sort of relatively stable mental state. Because you don't have your brain in overdrive trying to calculate and incorporate all these variables into your decisions. You're able to sort of exist or be in a relatively acceptable way. However, the downside of these maps or these simplifications of reality is that they are flawed, and that's the risk. And the simplification, your map of reality, it's only a simplification. It's not a fully accurate representation of reality. So your map of life does not track reality with 100% accuracy. So the takeaway from that is, okay, then maybe we need to sort of find a map that is as accurate as possible, as representative as possible as we can find. And the problem is that, I'm a young person. You probably won't find the most accurate map when you're young. And, someone like me would love to assume that they have found the correct map at a young age. But it's difficult to do that because it's quite discomforting to acknowledge that your interpretation of reality is flawed. And I would say for two reasons. Firstly, because of your ego. It's not nice to sort of admit to yourself and others that you are potentially delusional. And secondly, it's quite discomforting to acknowledge that the way you see reality might be enabling many opportunities to go unforeseen and that are not on your radar, or mistakes that you don't recognize what you're doing because they don't fit in your map of reality. That's also quite. It's not a comforting thought, let's say. Now this is where it gets interesting. So the question arises: where or how do we find the right map? I think the answer to that question is it's a process. And it's a process signified by repeated deaths and rebirths of your map. It's an iteration process. You reiterate the construction of your map. Because in life you will regularly stumble across new variables, new colors, new building blocks that will fortify your map. But you can only pinpoint these variables and building blocks and recognize their value if you are open and you have your eyes open. If you are arrogant and rigid about the sophistication of your map, so you think it's the right map without any sort of question, you will not be able to recognize these new building blocks and reiterate your map because of your ego and the unwanted revelation, let's say, that your map is flawed for those two reasons. So in order to rebuild your map and put it through the iterative process, you need to be humble, and that's quite difficult. And I find this very interesting because I believe in the biblical stories, the personality trait or the characteristic of arrogance is connected to a Luciferian mindset. So it's a characteristic of the devil, let's say. Let's say we may not need to attribute it as to something devilish, but it's a trait that is potentially unwanted. And it's also represented in the story of Cain and Abel, where Cain is arrogant and does not really listen to God's advice on, or the feedback God gives on Cain's performance or the sacrifices he gives. And Cain is arrogant. He thinks what he's doing is right without sort of looking up. There are representations of Cain and Abel, the story, where Cain is so focused on himself and what he's doing instead of looking up and acknowledging the feedback he's getting from God. And is represented in his posture. Like, he's arrogant, he is self-obsessed, and he thinks he is right. He is not open. And that, I think, is the downfall of your map, or of your own life to a degree, because you won't be able to iterate your map, because you won't recognize the value in these different variables, new variables and building blocks. And I mean, there's a saying, it goes like, pride precedes downfall, something like that. So you become proud, and then your downfall is imminent. So I find this super interesting. So in conclusion, in order to construct a fortified map of reality, we need to be open and humble about our maps, and that they are flawed, and that hence they can be reconstructed, reiterated, well, metaphorically killed and reborn in order to make them stronger. And if we're arrogant about our maps and don't recognize that they are flawed because of our ego and discomforting feelings, then we are bound to suffer in the long term, because we can become delusional. And also, as you go through life, you would assume if you're open, your map becomes stronger. However, if you're later in life and you've stayed rigid and closed-minded for a long part of your life, you'll be at the same stage as when you were a young person, or even worse off, because not only is your map the same as a young person's map, but you are not on the same trajectory as them. They're going upwards, but you're staying the same, or in this case, maybe going downwards. So in conclusion, that is the key to constructing a more fortified, stronger map of reality that is more representative of the true nature of our universe. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about how to construct maps of reality, dating, self-development, and how to reduce suffering in life. That's it, guys. Thank you for listening.